Well, my name is Paul Locke, and I'm the Assistant Commissioner for the Waste Site Cleanup Program, and I work out of the Boston office. So I was a chemistry major in college, and I thought that I would either end up doing research or teaching. So after college, I tried working in a research lab for a year, and then I tried 2 years of teaching chemistry and physics in the Peace Corps, and neither one really seemed like my life's work. So I applied to graduate school in environmental science. And when I was there, I met a classmate who had just left DEP to go back to school. And since I preferred public service rather than kind of private sector work or consulting job, when I graduated, I applied to DEP in 1987, and I've been there ever since. Well, when I started here, I told my landlady at the time that I would probably be there for like 3 years to get some experience and then move on with my life. What I didn't realize is that every time I would move on, it would be always within DEP. And as I said, I've been there now for 33 years. The great thing about working for a public agency is that it's always understaffed. There's a lot to do to protect the environment, and we never have enough bodies. There's always a cool and interesting project that's looking for help. And what I found is that if you're willing to raise your hand and say, I'll try that, I'll do that, then there are a lot of opportunities here at DEP. My initial job was very technical. It was reviewing risk assessments and evaluating contamination in drinking water supplies. I went from doing those evaluations and writing regulations to training on the regulations, which then led to developing courses and now doing things like online seminars for credit. So one thing leads to another, and you don't really know kind of where it's going to end up, but there are an awful lot of interesting ways it could go. Well, I would go back to my original role model, I think, who was Michael Dukakis. And I've always viewed him as a successful kind of technocrat nerd, someone who's less of an ideologue and more of a problem solver. And that's really what I wanted to be. I don't see myself as a visionary. Other people can think the great thoughts and dream up these great innovative goals. But I think what I'm better at and what I'm happier at doing is figuring out how to get to those goals, how to achieve them once somebody else thinks about them, and how to move the agency or the program forward and actually implement the program. One of the things I've always found fascinating is how to use technology to get more public involvement and more public participation kind of in the general environmental realm. So when I arrived at DEP, we had 2 personal computers in my office, in the Office of Research and Standards at the time. One was for the secretary, and she did word processing. And then the other one was just sitting in a corner unused. And so that essentially became my computer. So the first thing I did was use that to standardize the kind of drinking water evaluation process to make my job easier. And then I modified that program to include soil and air exposures so that it could be useful at hazardous waste sites as well. And then we kind of built a bulletin board system. Back in the days when you had a modem and you would dial in directly to the system, we built one of those and had it running in a corner of the office, kind of informally, so that we could make that program available to risk assessors in the private sector, and they could use it to evaluate sites. So we were running that, and then the governor's office decided that DEP would be one of 3 agencies in the Commonwealth to try out this new World Wide Web thing. And so they came to DEP to look for somebody to help do that development, and everybody pointed fingers at me because I was already running this bulletin board system, which was pretty much the same thing, right? So I got to design and develop and implement our initial website and the first generations of that, even before we had web access in the office. Going from there, I was later in a position in the Wayside Cleanup program to take what we were already doing with our online forms and create a system for the public and DEP staff and anybody to submit and to look at all the documents that we have for hazardous waste sites, for any individual hazardous waste site in the state. So each incremental step along the way is kind of making more information available, making it easier to see what we're doing, and hopefully making us more responsive to the people that we're serving. Everybody has equal access to the same information. And we're continuing to do that work. And it's been kind of a consistent thread, but with new and more exciting technology and opportunities kind of as it's gone along over the last 30 years or so. Well, I would say raise your hand and talk to people and volunteer for new projects. DEP also can offer a wide range of really interesting and valuable projects if you're willing to try them, if you're willing to raise your hand and say, yeah, I'll try that. I have some time. I'll do that. And if you do that, you end up staying 33 years, but never doing the same thing.